on you, boss.
But like I feel like substance use is more of a private thing. Um, and some people will be like, "Well, Taylor, how does your dad's drinking impact your swimming? Like, what does this have to do with you and your race?" And it's like, well, I when I first went to the Paralympic Training Center in July, like before I swam my mile, I was like low key crying a little bit because I was like, I wish my dad were alive to see this. And when I went to Mexico, I said, okay, if I medal, I want to dedicate my first international medal to my dad because I do wonder sometimes maybe if he didn't drink so much, maybe if I was a better daughter, or maybe if I pushed him harder to stop drinking, he'd still be alive. So I do feel some guilt in his death, but over time I've come to recognize, like we're grown-ups and grown-ups make their own decisions. But I've seen athletes who have struggled with drinking, and I've seen people with disability and chronic illness who struggle with drinking. And I haven't drank in 2.5 years, partially because of my Christianity. But I think about it. I think about it often. Um,
Mm.
Whenever I'm in pain, I think about it because I know I can spend about $6 a day and go buy 6 beers and drink them really fast and get really drunk, and I won't care that my back hurts today. I do know
Mm.
that. And sometimes when I go, to the gas station, I'll see the alcohol when I go to the bathroom. And I haven't done it in 2.5 years, but still, it's something that is very common that I feel like we don't talk about a lot. My friend's, excuse me, mom was killed by a drunk driver when I was in middle school, and alcoholism, it affects, I feel like it would be hard to say there's a single person on the planet who does not know somebody possibly impacted by alcoholism, either having liver disease or a DUI, or even just like, I don't know. But we as athletes can talk about sport, and I think, like I said, sport is great. Me and my friend joke that sports swimming saved our lives because we both had mental um, struggles after our injuries. There was a point in my life where I was suicidal in high school because of my back. And, swimming is a great outlet for me. But at the end of the day, yeah, you're a great swimmer, you got medals, sponsorships, etc. But how can you use your blessings to help other people? And I think that's something that I want to be mindful of. I want to, if I continue on the progression that I'm continuing and maybe go to Paris one day, I want to talk about what God's done for me, and, how I used to be suicidal. And, if you are too, I know how it feels. And, my dad passed away when he was 50 from drinking, and, just use life experience to destigmatize things and talk about things because yeah, it's cool. I don't want to downplay how amazing and how much work and dedication it takes to be an elite athlete. Like a lot of sacrifice. But I think sometimes we can use our platforms for good and for changing things, and that's really important.
I could not agree more. It's another string to the bow of fitness as a catalyst. I kind of say it in two different entities, right? Of like we got the ground level, we got the average Joes that come in and just want to work out and get a little bit of fitness, look good naked and lift up the grandkid, right? High five, let's do it. And then we've also got these athletes at the same thing. And the average Joes are walking billboards. They never shut up. They're always talking, and it's like, great, we can maybe influence people positively in that regard, right? But also the athletes are the ones that are going to be on the billboards. They're going to be the ones that are on telly, you know what I mean? And ultimately going to get a microphone. And it's like, great, like we can use both of them through this weird thing that we do with our body called fitness, whether it's like we said, swimming or anything else. And I really, I really, I'm really glad you said that. I think that's really needed for people to hear, whether you're an athlete, whether you're not, whether you train or whether you don't, of just like this is more than a piece of metal round your neck. You know, this is more than just an ego brush standing up and everybody looking at you. You know, this is more than representing your country at the end of the day, because you can help people um, beyond national borders. You know, beyond everything. You're helping people. Full stop. You know, we are all people, regardless of everything. And I think that's really powerful. So I appreciate you saying that.
Yeah, yeah. And like you said, this metal, so where I live right now, I live in the middle of nowhere. Like the nearest Target's like an hour away. The nearest Olive Garden's over an hour away. Like for Americans, they'll get it. I don't know. I don't want to be what's the word? Like rude, but I don't know if I forget where you live, if there's Target there, but I love Target. I'm sorry. I'm like super stereotypical. Like I don't drink pumpkin spice lattes, but like I love Target. Um, but
It's
even
fine. I
like
understand.
someone like me, I train alone. I don't have a team right now. Um, it's quite lonely sometimes. Like it's hard. My friend reached out to me like, how do you stay motivated? I'm like, some days it's just I have to do this if I want to advance where I want to advance, and it's very lonely.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you do train all by yourself, let's say you're not married, if you go to the Paralympics or the Olympics and you medal, it's not just because of you. Let's say for me, there was a lifeguard who came and opened that pool every day. I should thank that lifeguard. Like I'm thankful I live near a pool. I'm thankful I have a car.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something I've had to work on over time is, I am not where I'm at in my life because I'm a quote unquote good person or I work hard. Um, I have so many people who've helped me through my life. And, as a Christian, I truly believe I'm here because this is what God has in store for me. And that's something that's helped me, when bad things do happen. Because after I broke my back, I thought maybe this happened because I'm a bad daughter or I'm a bad person or I'm being punished. And that is probably the most toxic mindset I've ever had in my life because I
Mm-hmm.
thought, like I deserve this? If I did deserve this, why? And I just kind of had such a negative, like, self image. And as I've gotten older, I've become a little more like introspective in my life. And I do think I'm possibly neurotypical. Neurotypical. I think I may be on the ADHD and or autism spectrum. And, in high school, I felt like everybody knew me because I'm loud, but I didn't feel like I had a lot of friends. And I didn't feel like I had a great relationship with my parents. And my parents got divorced in high school and then they got back together. And then I broke my back and it was just a hot mess. And, it took me a really long time to be like, this is just something, stuff happens to people, and you can be a great, great person. And I know some people, amazing people, and they can't have children and they want children biologically. And, it's not their fault. It just happens, disability, illness, diagnoses happen to great people. And I think if I have that mindset, it just makes me mad when bad things don't happen to bad people because that's just not the way the world works. Good things happen to bad people, bad things happen to good people. And, I think acceptance is a really big thing. This is a random tangent, but I had a conversation with my dad. Oh, what year is it? Probably 5 years, 4 or 5 years ago. And me and my younger sister were talking to him, and I just said, Dad, like, I've accepted that I'm disabled. I've accepted that this has happened to me. You just got to stop. You have to too. Because it was really hard for him to come to terms that, I used a cane to walk and to come to terms that I was diagnosed with Ehlers-Danlos, which is genetic. And, I got diagnosed at Johns Hopkins, and that, in my opinion, is, I'd say, the best hospital in the country. I'm biased. I volunteered there. I have doctors there. They're great people. And my dad was just like, no, I don't think so. Like, he's very much pushed through it. We don't need doctors as much as society says so.
Mm-hmm.
Um, And that really hurt me. I certain things in my life I need to push through. And he was one of the reasons I got back in the pool, because I was on the couch one day, watching a TV show and kind of wallowing in my sadness. I don't want to like be insensitive, but like I just was a mess. And he walked in one day and he pointed at me. He said, "You need to," not without the explicits, but he was like, "You need to get off your butt and go get a life. Like, go get a job, go to college. Like, I don't care. Like, you need to stop doing this." And I was like, I burst into tears. And I'm like, "Dad, you don't know how it feels like to be in the pain I'm in or the life I have." And he was like, "I don't care." And
Mm.
I was so angry for so long, but he was right.
Mm.
If you have a life altering injury, your life is going to be different. But, what are you going to do with it? Like, I can make the decision and sit on the couch all day, and some people need that. Like, I needed that when I first had my injury. I needed to heal, but I was afraid to thrive after I was out of that kind of healing period. And I don't know exactly what was in my head. I hated how people talked about my cane. I was 17 with a cane, and like I went to college. I had guys make sex jokes about me using a cane. I made People made fun of me because I had to sit on these special pillows. I called them butt pillows. Like, it was just a mess. And I think part of that scared me, is how society was going to view me as some like broken, ugly, like disabled little redhead. And I used to have a Reddit um, on my old account. And I wrote a Reddit post and I was like, "Hey, I'm 18. I broke my back. I have all these issues." I was like, "I don't think I'm ever going to have kids. Who's going to want to marry me? I wanted to be a doctor, but I can't function like outside more than half an hour. Like, my whole life is ruined. I can't swim." I just thought I was going to be like sad, lonely, disabled, and in pain, like in a ball the rest of my life. And it took a lot of, prayer and soul searching and people. And like, even though my pain management doctor, told me, "Hey, you're never going to swim or compete again," I don't hold it against him, because I think not a lot of people knew about the Paralympics back then. It's getting better.
Mm.
Um, I don't hold that against him, but what I do hold against him is he told a young woman I committed to swim at Loyola between my injuries, and who was going to be, I was training to do an Ironman. Like, you tell her she's never going to be able to do anything athletic again, and you just drop that bomb and then be like, "I can put needles in your back to make you feel better." Like, that's just not good. Like, I wish he gave me like, "Here's a support group," or like, because I do, at first I thought it was dumb. Like, when I went to Kennedy Krieger, they said, "We want you to do some cognitive therapy during your like in alongside your physical therapy." And I was like, "Well, that's dumb, like, why do I have to do that?" But now that I've been through what I've been through, I'm like, that would have really helped me. Talking about things in my childhood and the way I perceived myself and the way I felt that society perceived myself would have been really helpful. And I feel like I do try to talk about my mental health struggles when I was younger, because I didn't seek help and I almost killed myself because I didn't seek help. And then after I started to, I am an aborted suicide attempt survivor. I didn't see anybody, I didn't tell anybody, and I anonymously went to group therapy for it. So, like, I'm the poster board of kind of what not to do when you become disabled, because like I just didn't know. I did not value myself enough as a person to think that I deserve to have help. And I think that makes me sad, because I know there's so many other people out there just like me when I was in that kind of mindset. And like, I'm a very social person. I told you I struggle sometimes. I feel like I still don't fit in well with my peers. I joked with my friend the other day, I feel like I'm like perpetually stuck at 14, like socially. Like, I like Pokemon. I like, like, which I'm not saying adults can't like Pokemon, but like I love babysitting younger kids, because like we watch like Paw Patrol and like My Little Pony, and like that's just me. I don't know. I'm very spontaneous. My brain's like a mile a minute. I always joke. I tell my friends I don't need to do drugs because my brain is like somebody on drugs, which like I don't want to be insensitive with that statement, but like I can't turn my brain off sometimes, and it's just like, wee. But I don't remember what I was talking about, but I don't know. I had a swim coach ask me for her swim team what advice I'd have for them. And I said, if for people who just became disabled, my biggest advice is you need to mourn the life you lost, but it's more important to embrace the life you gained. Because I was stuck in that mourning period. I'd say at least 2 years. But now, if you ask me, hey, like if you could go back and stop you flipping that jet ski or stop you falling out of that chair, would you do it? And the pain is terrible. And like, I don't even know if I can have kids because of my back issues, but the opportunities that paraswimming has brought me, and I feel like the self-reflection and the empathy I've grown as a disabled person, I don't think I don't think I'd stop myself, because like it's just changed my perspective on the world. And I think if you're not disabled, you don't get it. You can try to empathize as much as you can, but you just don't get it. And that's not a bad thing, but I think it's going to make me a better mother. I think it's made me a better wife, to a fault. Sometimes I feel like I'm too interested in people's business, that it might be inappropriate. And like, I cry about other people, and like, I get very attached to people. But, if I never broke my back, I wouldn't be talking about how like, well, this building doesn't have an elevator or a ramp. Like, that's not okay. I wouldn't recognize that, because like when I was able-bodied, I didn't really know anybody who's disabled, and how inaccessible the world is right now is not okay. And I love the world, but it needs to get better. Yeah, I love the opportunities I have as an American. I just think certain things can 100% be improved. And kind of like I said before, you can love the system of like paraswimming or love the country you have, but recognize it's flawed and there are issues that can be fixed. Other ones will take time. Some may never happen, but that was really all over the place. Sorry.
No, no, don't apologize. I'm not your mom. They never need to apologize to me, and I think it all starts with that conversation. We don't know. I don't know what you think or feel. I'm not inside your head. So we start off by creating this open space, right? When in this environment where people can have the opportunity to be able to voice their opinion, and you get people from all walks of life in here, and you're like, okay, cool. Like, what do we think, guys? And you're like, how did you not see this blind hole in the middle? You're like, oh yeah, like good point. Maybe we fix this one in, fill it in, and then we just kind of move forward. Keep throwing things against the wall, and eventually something's going to stick. That's kind of the way I live. I think we're kind of analysis by paralysis, or the other way around. Sorry, paralysis by analysis, of just like, oh, I don't know. There's so much to go on, and I don't want to fail. And it's just, guys, just first of all, just talk to people. Hey, what do you think? It's like, oh, well, I think that's pretty good. Thank you. Go to the next person. Hey, what do you think? Oh, actually, like maybe we can put an elevator in there, because if you're, a seated athlete, or somebody bound to a wheelchair, it's like, oh, okay, cool. Thank you. And then we'll, oh, where's the braille and the signs and stuff like that? Just something so small, and being able to be like, oh, okay, cool. This isn't a personal attack of, oh, you forgot that you're a bad person. It's like, no. Hey, I understand that the world is a busy place and there's a lot going on in people's lives. Like, maybe I'm just going to add something to the table, and we can kind of adapt from there. And that's the way I see coaching as well. Like, someone comes in, I'm like, wow, I don't know, to be honest, but let's get out on the dance floor and let's figure this out. And it's just like this conversing and communication between two people. And we're like, oh, okay. I guess that kind of looked like some sort of a training session. We'll try again tomorrow, and we'll have a little bit more knowledge going into it, you know. And it's just this kind of like trial and error scenario of like, yeah, how do we make the world a better place? Like, it's not going to happen overnight. You know, there's going to be a lot of people really miffed off for a while. Unfortunately, that's just the way it goes. People get, you know, the knickers in a twist a lot, and it's like, okay, but like we have to commit to the long run. You know, this isn't going to happen short term. You know, I'm not going to get in the pool and swim 100 meters 3 times a week for a month and go to the Paralympics. I'm sorry, guys, but that's just not going to happen. You know, we need to be able to commit, and yeah, I think you're already doing that. I think you're doing it by proving it in the pool, and I think you're doing it by being like, you know what, I'm going to put my heart on my sleeve, and I'm going to speak from it as often as I can, you know, and I'm going to be like, oh, okay, this is my truth. You know, this might not actually be the universal truth, whatever that means, you know, but this is my truth, and I have the right to be able to converse that and say it. And I think people take so much from that, you know, even if it is, oh, I don't believe in what you're saying, but the very fact of you standing up and be like, hey, this is just what I think, who I am, you know, what I've been through, a story, you know, it benefits people. They gain so much strength from it, you know, and I think that's such a powerful tool. So you're already doing it, mate. I just want to say thank you for what you're doing already. You know, it's badass, and I can't wait until you get in that pool and prove a lot of things wrong.
Yeah, I thank you. I That's something I'm trying to work on, like embracing. I talked to my one friend who's newer on the national team too, and she's like, you know, we're like the real deal, you know, like we are elite athletes. And part of me
Yeah,
still, I don't know if it's just a response to my trauma, but it's hard for me to feel comfortable where I'm at because I'm always scared, like I said, it's going to be taken away from me. I committed to swim out of college and then I couldn't do it because I broke my back. You know, like my relationship got better with my dad and then he died. So it's just like, it's
yeah,
hard for me to, because I just don't want to be back in that mindset where I think like I'm the bee's knees and like be really kind of like cocky. Um, but also, you know, athletes look so different across sports. You know, certain sports, the athletes in general are a little more lean, and in other sports, like you need like weight on you to perform. You know, especially with like powerlifting and football and stuff. And something that's really stayed in my mind since college, it was my freshman year, and I had a cane, and you know, I wore my that's I think I had my black back brace, my black one, not my blue one. Um, and you know, I'm walking with my roommate somewhere. We're going like to dinner, and we stop, and we're just talking to this dude. And my roommate's like, "Oh yeah, this is my roommate Taylor. You know, she's a swimmer." And he literally like looked at me from like my head down to my toes and then back up. And he was like, "Oh, she doesn't look like one." And I was like, "Okay, well, is this dude calling me, you know, overweight, or does he think that I can't be an athlete because I'm disabled?" Or I don't remember the rest of that conversation, but I remember the way it felt like, you know, crap.
yeah,
I it just People say weird things, you know, and it's just sometimes it's like because my husband's a very honest man and I really appreciate it because like I know how he's really feeling. He doesn't like, you know, lie, which is something I've had to work on in my life. I've told a lot of white lies in my life, and you know, people ask me, "Are you okay?" And I could be very angry, and I'll just be like, "Oh, it's fine." Like
mm,
I've been trying to work on being more honest, but honesty for the sake of being like just rude for no reason is something I really, really don't like. You know, like you could be like, "Oh, okay, well, you're a swimmer, you know, maybe ask, are you saying that because you think I look different or because I'm disabled?" Be like, "Okay, you know, like, I don't know. I That's my talkative like psych degree there. Like, let's get to the root of the issue. Why do you feel this way, young man? Like, why are you saying this? Like, tell me." But like misconceptions are really big among the disabled community. And I feel like I'm lucky in a sense because I am ambulatory. I walk with leg braces. So I do have a lot of questions of those, especially at the gym. Yeah, I've had people think I've had Oscar slaughters. I've had people ask if it's like my arches are weird. It's been a good conversation starter, but like now that I'm more quote unquote in shape, you can look at my body type and maybe be like, okay, she's an athlete. But I have friends who are in wheelchairs who are amazing, amazing athletes, faster than me. And people will be like, how are you an athlete? Like you can't walk. And it's like, okay, well, you don't use your legs for everything in your life. Like,
Mhm.
but I love it though. Like I said, I think parasport's so cool because like we all have different stories. Some of us were born like that, and some of us, acquired it. And I think it adds a lot of admiration for what the human body can do, but also, admiration of resilience and of perseverance. And, if you go out and break your back and you don't want to be an athlete and you want to write a great book, that's great. Not everybody, we disabled people don't need to prove their value to society by being athletes.
Mhm.
You can be valuable in no matter what you do. Um, but I do think it's really cool. And I like really appreciate the privilege I have because I know there are women in other countries who are able bodied who can't do sports. And I even read of a woman, I forget the country, so I don't want to guess. But she went to a competition and did not wear a head covering, and she's going back to her country, and they're talking about possibly arresting her, and she could be put to death for that. So, like being a woman who can choose her modesty standards in America, I'm really grateful for. And other countries, people with disabilities, they're not seen as valuable to society, and they don't have
Mhm.
the same opportunities I do. So that's kind of back to the last conversation about like gratitude and stuff, but it's really cool.
It's awesome, and it's so cool as an able-bodied person to just be able to watch. Never mind just okay, this is this community and this is this community and yada yada. I'm like, no, it's just people, and it's people now doing sport. And this sport's just going to look slightly different, just like football looks different to polo. It's like they're different sports, and okay, this sport's going to look a little bit different. Why? Because they're bound to wheelchairs. Like, duh. Like it's wheelchair basketball. Like it's gonna look slightly different. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. And it's just what it is. I think if we line up all the differences, right, and we line up all our similarities, I think the similarities is just gonna vastly outweigh the differences. And I think we need to embrace that. I think we need to push that a little bit more of just like these are human beings and they feel things and they also can perform. And so can we, but they're a little bit fitter than we are, and a lot more skillful and definitely a lot better in the water than I am. But it's like, okay, well, we're all similar. We're going to embrace our differences, great, and we're going to learn from them. I don't know what it's like growing up in the States, so I'm going to learn from you. And you don't know what it's like growing up in Manchester, so you're going to learn from me, right? And then we're also going to be like, oh, we're actually living, breathing, talking people, right? And we're going to kind of celebrate that and come together and be like, cool, like, what do you like to do? Oh, you swim. Well, let's go watch that. That's cool. What do you like to do? Oh, I weightlift. I just, don't do anything above one rep pretty much. I like to sit down and eat Haribos in between sets and call it fitness. And you know, I think it's cool, man. I think it's so fascinating, and I can't wait for it to be on par. At the moment, there's the wheelchair rugby league World Cup going on, and me and my dad on the weekend literally just had the rugby league all day, and it flicked between wheelchair and able-bodied, and it was so cool of watching like this type of code of rugby, right? Which is predominantly the working class code, and this is where we're from, and most of the teams come out of like the northwest, which is our city, and it was so cool of just like, wow, we're watching the same thing, but it's just done slightly different. But the thing is, like, if we watch different leagues, right, they perform the same sport slightly different. If I go to North and Southern Hemisphere, because I lived in New Zealand for the past 3 years, the way they play the game is slightly different. And I'm like, yeah, it's all the same, guys. You know, if I coach someone who's hearing impaired and I'm coaching in sign, it's the same thing. If I coach someone who's visually impaired, who's got cerebral palsy or any of this, it's like it's the same as coaching kids. It's the same as coaching the elderly. Like, how, let's just like take away that initial, oh, this is different, I'm scared. Like, let's just kind of like put it in a box, or I'm gonna run away. I was like, guys, come on, we're adults now. All right, we can be a little bit uncomfortable, right? And then we can learn from it, and then maybe we're then comfortable in that scenario in the future. And I think by talking about it, by publicizing it, and then just also just showing us like, look how badass these human beings are. Watching that rugby on the weekend, oh mate, I was at the edge of my seat. Just seeing people just flinging themselves about just to get the tackle, and you're just like, this is insane. These are actual athletes. And it was like, yeah, like the only difference is they're sat down. Like, that's it.
Yes, yes. One of my favorite memes is like, there's like this lady in a wheelchair, and she's like, I don't know why people treat me so weird. Like when I'm out and about, like even at the grocery store, like I'm literally just a person sitting down. Like,
Yeah, yeah,
do you sit
legit.
down to eat dinner? Yes
Yeah.
or no? Like, and that's something with someone more of an invisible disability. Um, I haven't experienced as much. But I know some people who are in wheelchairs, and people talk down to them or even kind of treat them like children. And I don't like the wording of this, but almost treat them like they have an intellectual disability, which I have teammates with intellectual disabilities. And that's something I've been trying to work on personally. Is I feel like I often use like pet names instead of their name, like, oh, good job, buddy, like, great job. And I'm like, well,
Mm.
is that how I would talk to one of my neurotypical teammates, who just swam good? I'd be like, good job, first name. So that's something I've been trying to work on, because, there are different ways to communicate with people who are a neurotypical, that can make both of our communication better. I know a friend who is on the spectrum, and like, say he loves Pokemon, which is great because I love Pokemon. We can talk about that. Um, Maybe he wouldn't be interested in organic chemistry, which I honestly did not really enjoy that class either. So I get it. But you do change some things. But in general, like, I think the way we approach people with disabilities is we'll let you know if our needs are known, or if we will let you know our needs if they need to be known. But if you just treat me like any other person, that's cool. Unless it's like, hey, can you hold the door open? There isn't a button, and you're like, oh no, I'm gonna treat you the same. Like, no special treatment. Well, like, it's not special treatment to have accessibility.
Mhm.
But like, don't assume that I'm incapable of doing things, because like that's kind of just a downer. You know, I want kids one day, and I don't know if they'll be biologically, but if we adopt, I am trying to prepare myself for people asking, like, well, how are you a mom? Or like, how did that work? And I haven't had those invasive questions before, but I do know some people who've, like, literally people have been like, you're in a wheelchair. How did you conceive your baby? And it's like, we don't need to have this conversation.
Mm.
Like, it's disabled people can be moms, they can be doctors, they can be, athletes, they can be whatever, really, pretty much, as long as the world's accessible. There are some things we can't do because the world's not accessible, but it's not because we're incompetent or lazy. It's because people don't treat us equally. But yeah.
Equal opportunity. I always go back to equal opportunity. That's my entire thing. Like, everything that I do, I'm like, how do we get people to this line? All right. And then from there, it's kind of up to them. They go in any direction that they want. I see coaching, I see fitness, I see this thing as taking as many horses as we can to that water. Right. But those horses individually need to decide whether they want to drink or not. That's not up to me, but we need to be able to get all those horses to the water. We need to get everybody on that start line, whether you're fully able, disabled, all right, big, small, black, green, right, an alien, a human, whatever. I don't care. I just don't care. Like, you could have done some things in the past or been an absolute saint. I just don't care. How can we get people at this line? And then it's up to them. Okay, crack on. Do your thing. You don't want to be an athlete? Great. Then it's just accountability, right? Of like, well, you're going to have to put in the work. I'm sorry, but it's not going to be just kind of given to you, right? You do have to work hard, but like everything needs to be accessible for everybody. It breaks my heart. I started off on this journey a long time ago in coaching. It broke my heart. I was just like, well, these people have money and these people don't have money. And because these people don't have money, they can't access the sport. I was like, this doesn't make any sense. I was like, these people, a lot of people that I've coached with nothing, like orphans, like nothing to their name. I'm like, they are one of the most genetically gifted people I've ever seen. And I'm just like, if you're able to nurture these people, they also have a chip on their shoulder and the mentality of just like do or die. They will go to the highest level of any sport. And you're just like, nah, they don't have money, whatever. You're just like, wait, what? Like chopping off my hand to spite my foot. That doesn't make any sense, right? I was just like, how do we get people to this line? How do we do it? And I think it's conversation. It's that number one. And you just did it, telling your story. And I feel honored. I just want to say
Thank
thank you.
you.
You know,
Thank Yeah, I totally agree. I have a teammate. I don't mind name dropping him because he's like very open and very big about this. His name's Jamal Hill, and he goes around and teaches people how to swim. And he kind of works specifically in areas that may not have as much funding as other areas. And he is one of two African American swimmers on our national team. And I think what he does is, well, going back to that, who I like, I don't know if other people identify as African American, but that I know of. My brain doesn't always remember things correctly. I apologize if I just misspoke, but he's really big into that. And I think that's great because, like, people who are living in areas of lower socioeconomic status and also people of color are statistically more likely to drown. And him being a man of color going out and, advocating for these communities and teaching all these children, I think is really great. And I would love to, I actually think I might volunteer with his company, not company, his nonprofit virtually next year. I forget. I think that's great. And I think as a disabled athlete, there are certain foundations that do funding, like Challenge Athletes Foundation, Team Catapult, I'm Able Foundation. There's a couple others. But like you said, it's freaky because I used to be a swim coach back when I like lived near people in society with the targets. Some kids you throw in the water and it's like, bruh, like they can just swim. It's just a God-given gift that they have, and it's so cool to watch. And there are other kids who try so hard for so long and they don't see the same results, and that's frustrating for me to see sometimes. I do think sport is a percentage of hard work, but I also think part of it is just genetics and natural gifted
mm,
potential. That's not saying you might not be as gifted at first, but you can get there. But some people I have seen get there a little easier than others. But that's kind of the novelty of it.
mm,
Somebody might be a crappy swimmer and be the best, wheelchair rugby player in the world. It's just, you got to find where you go. And some people, if you're not ranking well or quote unquote good in your sport, but you love it, stay there. I'd rather do that. I played wheelchair basketball. I didn't like it because I'd get so many penalties for running into people and it hurt my wrists to score. I loved sled hockey, but right now with my swimming doing as well as it is, I'm at too risk of getting injured. I've gotten a concussion before and lots of bruises